Hi friends! I'm so happy you're here today because I'll be talking about all the books I read in January. Well, not all of them. I did do a recent reads. I'll link that in the cards in the description box down below. You can check out some other books that I ended up reading in January. I just broke it up because I ended up reading 30 books in January. Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. I started out the month really well with I think 8 books I read for that Wednesday Addams vlog. Yeah, so I started out really strong. I didn't finish so strong, but I kind of gave up, you know, because I read 30 books, so I was over it. But getting into it, I'm going to talk about the books I read for the Wednesday Addams vlog, which I'll link down below, where I talk about these books more in depth. And starting out the year with Deserted by Junji Ito. This is a short story collection, and I ended up giving this 5 stars because there is a story in this for people who have long hair. It's a nightmare. It's like an absolute nightmare. I still think about it. I watched the series too, the Junji Ito series, and that episode I was like, Alex, this is what I was talking about. What other stories did I like? I have a sticky note here. Yeah, The Long Hair in the Attic is the story I'm talking about. The Unleavable Labyrinth, I liked that one, and Father's Love. And Bullied. So I had a lot of fun with this. A great way to start off the year. And in the Wednesday Addams vlog as well, I read The Chestnut Man. I listened to this from Libby. This is actually an ARC copy that I'll be donating. But this is a really dark crime thriller, and I really enjoyed it and gave it 4 stars. And I highly suggest checking out the show on Netflix as well. For that vlog, I ended up listening to Stiff by Mary Roach. I just forgot to talk about it. This is a nonfiction book about what happens to your body when you're dead, and I thought it was actually kind of boring. It might be because I'm totally spoiled by Caitlin Doughty, Ask the Mortician. Her books are really funny and engaging, and this was just kind of like repeating stuff I already knew, and also this was written like 20 years ago, so that might be it, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. And then I ended up reading In the Miso Soup by Reo Murakami. This is a horror book, but I would think it's more of like a thriller book. There's only like one scene in this where it is horror, but it starts out really great. It starts off like a thriller. It's like a great back and forth, and the tension is there. And then there's that one scene that's horrible, and then it's just boring. I was so bored. It was a lot of talking. Nothing's ever really explained. It just kind of ends. And also, there's a jab at horror movie lovers in this for no reason. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Anyways, this is about a guy named Frank, an American tourist who hires this dude in Tokyo around New Year's to bring him like to all the sex clubs in Tokyo. It's like 1999 or 2000. So yeah, those vibes definitely translate, but yeah, I was really bored towards the end. I didn't like the ending, and ended up giving it 3 stars. Started out really strong, but yeah, I just didn't care for the ending. And then I ended up reading For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. This is a thriller that takes place in like a prestigious high school, and this teacher is doing everything for the students' own good. I had a lot of fun with this one. It's kind of ridiculous, but I really enjoyed it, and gave it 4 stars. And then I read The Dismembered by Jonathan Janz. This is like a really gory gothic book, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think it played with gothic tropes while doing something like really horrific. In the meanwhile, there's lots of Rebecca tropes, Jane Eyre things happen in this, but it's taken to another level. Let's just say that. I think this is a novella, and it's available on KU, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Next book I ended up reading was Dark Across the Bay by Anya Alburn. I listened to this one on Scribd, and I did not care for this one at all. This one, I think because I went in thinking it was going to be like an Anya Alburn like horror book. It's definitely more of a thriller with some gore in it. So I ended up giving this one, I think, 2 stars or 2.5 stars. I didn't like the ending either. It wasn't her typical ending. yeah, so I don't know. I just think I had different expectations of this book going in, which I don't usually have, but with authors that I've read a lot from, I do, if that makes sense. And then I read Monster by Christopher Pike. This was recommended to me by Kelsey from Slime and Slashers for the 12 books from 12 Friends challenge, and I liked this book. I really enjoyed it, but I think Witch is still my favorite. And that's just because the esoteric stuff in that was a lot of fun for me. But this starts off really wild, so I will give it that. The first chapter, I was shocked. It is very gory. This opens up with a girl coming into a high school party with a shotgun and is like aiming for certain people, and she hits her target. It's really wild. So basically this girl believes that her friends in high school are monsters, as you can tell from this amazing cover. So I will say right now my Christopher Pike ratings is like The Witch and then this one. So this one's coming in second. I gave it 4 stars. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, I can't wait to read more Pike books. Next books I ended up reading were during Scary Sleepover weekend, which was hosted by Alex from the Book Abyss. So I started off that weekend with The Wehrwolf by Amakatsu. And this is like a werewolf little short story. It's 70 pages. It takes place in the end of World War II in a small village out in Germany. So yeah, I won't go into a lot of details about this, but it's not your typical werewolf story. I liked elements added into this and the history incorporated, which Amakatsu is known for, and I really liked her afterward. I ended up reading Shepherd of the Black Sheep by Christopher Triana during that vlog as well. This is a thriller that takes place like in a rural setting. It is a grandfather and his granddaughter, and her friend ends up murdered after her parents were murdered. So some sketchiness going on there. I had a blast with this actually, because this is like one of my favorite tropes, and I gave it 4 stars, and I definitely want to check out more of Triana's thrillers. And then I ended up reading Nest of Nightmares by Lisa Tuttle. If you follow me on Instagram, you're probably sick of seeing this book, but wow, what a collection of short stories this is. I'm not big into short story collections, and this has kind of changed my mind about them, I guess. It's just my ADD. I'll read one story and I'll put it down. With this, I read the first story and I had to put it down for a while because it was so intense and disturbing, and beautiful at the same time. So I had like a lot of mixed emotions. If you watch my Scary Sleepover vlog, I didn't even finish this because I just I was having too much fun with the sleepover stuff. But these stories are so messed up and wild and disturbing. This is described as feminist domestic horror. Yes, that is the most simple way to describe this set of these stories. Very bizarre, great imagery. I love the doll story in this so much. And if you follow me on Instagram, I did kind of a little dedicated review to this pretty recently, and I rated all the stories down. So if you're interested in that, my Instagram's always linked in the description box down below. But yeah, highly suggest checking out A Nest of Nightmares. 5 stars. Mwah, mwah. A million chef's kisses. And then I just randomly read Hell's Bells by Lisa Quigley. This is a Rewind or Die over on KU, you know, where I'm at all the time apparently. I read this because to go to sleep at night, I have to read on my Kindle. It's like a habit of mine now. And I'll either stay awake for 15 to 20 minutes reading, or it could be 2 hours. It just like depends on the book. But this was like a fun little novella about a group of girls in the 90s. I think it's in the 90s, and it's surrounded by the lead singer of Queen's, Eddie Mercury's death, and how much it affected them. and it's kind of sweet. It's kind of like a sweet friendship story. One of the friends becomes super Christian, while the other friends might have accidentally summoned the devil. You know, this stuff happens when you're a teenager. It's weird. You know, Eddie Mercury just died. Oh my gosh. I had a lot of fun with this one, but it definitely didn't like blow me away or anything. But I enjoyed it and gave it 3.5 stars. So the next couple of books I'm going to talk about are disturbing books. I was going to read these for a vlog, but as I went to put the vlog together, one of my clips, it's one of the big clips because I only read 4 books for this vlog, and it got distorted. The sound got messed up. It's actually quite eerie. But anyways, getting into these books, I ended up reading BIrdman by Mo Hader. This is a like crime procedural thriller about a serial killer that leaves birds like inside the body, dismembered bodies. This was written in 2000 or 2001, and this came on my radar, I think Baker's Books, but I do know it's on Ollie's project list for most disturbing books, but I don't think he's read it yet. This was very disturbing. This is very gritty, you know, like, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe like the 9 Inch Nails Closer music video done in like a serial killer way. That is the vibes of this book. The stuff in this book I was really not expecting for just like a typical crime procedural thriller book. Like, I couldn't imagine if you just read like, I mean, Tammy Hogue does get pretty intense too, and Karen Slaughter. This is like on another level to where I think it self-references itself in it with other books. And I was like, yep, that's it, that's correct. So I really enjoyed it. Very disturbing. I will be reading more from Mo Hader, and I gave it 4 stars. Next book I ended up reading for that vlog that didn't happen, it was The Living Dead Girl by Elizabeth Scott. I listened to this on Scribd. This is a very short YA book about a girl that is kidnapped by a pedophile, and he wants to keep her looking like a child, and then she's kind of dealt this task of helping kidnap his next victim. It is so dark. It's horrific at parts, and it's really sad book, but it's very short, which was nice. And there's some stuff in this that was like kind of annoying to me. It's told like fairy tale, because the girl was like 11 or 12 when it happened, and she's Once Upon a Time is very repetitive, and then I feel like it didn't really fit with the structure of the story. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4 on Goodreads. And then I ended up listening to Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, and I loved this book. This is on a couple of disturbing books list, and I can see why it is very disturbing. There's some disturbing elements in this. What disturbed me most is that this starts off in 2024 in California, and it is hitting very close to home, very close to the world we live in today, and it's eerie. It's so scary because it's like, you know, in a year or two, will this be our world? It's a scary thing to think about. So this is kind of, I guess, a dystopian novel, and the main character lives in a cul-de-sac that has built these walls or like fences to keep out raiders, thieves, murderers. It's very dangerous, and they grow their own food, they do their own schooling. Her dad does leave once a week to go to his job as a teacher, and he's also the preacher of their community, and she is a empathic, that like a highly evolved empathic. Like her mother took some pharmaceutical drug while she was pregnant, and so she ended up with his empathic powers. I mean, I wouldn't really call it a power, I would call it like a disposition for sure, because if she sees something happening to like a creature or like an animal or a human, she feels it. and she shares blood and stuff too. So it's really interesting. I liked where this went. This felt like a really cool Dune. If you've read Dune, this is like a cooler, like more down to earth and scary Dune. Minus the sandworms. No sandworms, lots of wild dogs. In this. The imagery was done really well, and yeah, I just loved where it went. I'm so excited to read Earthseed 2. I gave this 5 stars. I'm here for it. It's scary because it's like everything in this book is happening now, and yeah, I'm here for it. Disturb me. I'm all for it. The next book I ended up reading for that disturbing books vlog was Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews. This book is very disturbing, and I cannot believe that a bunch of 12-year-olds in the 80s were reading this. Like, what does that? This explains a lot today, I guess. This takes place in Virginia. I did not know that either. And then I didn't know how much incest was in this. This is like a really big incest story. Not just from the brother and sister in the attic. There's like a whole other level of incest in this freaking family. So yeah, I didn't know that either. It's told pretty early on, because it's kind of the reason they're in there, right? So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this book. This book is so messed up. It is so disturbing because there's also very small children involved in this too. It's like tween, I guess they're tweens when they get thrown in the attic, but they also with their younger siblings that are twins, and it's very sad. The mother's horrific. The grandmother's even more horrific. It's just awful. It's so awful and great at the same time. The imagery, the attic itself when they get there is so creepy. It's covered in spider webs. It's fantastic. It's like great, really great imagery, descriptions. Like it's just gothic. It's just those gothic vibes. And I loved it. It was great. I had a lot of fun with it. I can't believe I've never read Flowers in the Attic. What the heck? Who am I? I can't believe 12-year-olds in the 80s was reading this and just being cool about it. Because this is so messed up. There's so much dark stuff that happens in this. And you know, the ending, I really liked the ending. I'm gonna have to read Petals in the Wind, I guess, is the next one, because it is kind of a cliffhanger. It goes into one of my favorite tropes in horror. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I ended up giving it 4 stars though, because I felt like there needed to be more immediate stuff that happened in it, but I understand why. But yeah, if you haven't read Flowers in the Attic, it's time. It's time to rip off that bandage, I guess, because it's very disturbing. And I know V.C. Andrews did write this one, but I don't know how many of the sequels she wrote, because I do know she passed away in the 80s. But yeah, this is so messed up. Oh my gosh. Next book I'm going to talk about really quickly, I read it for Amy Newell's book club for this month, is These Violent Delights by Micah Niemriver. This is, I would say this is more of like a literary horror book. This is about a guy named Paul. He goes off to college, he meets a boyfriend, and things aren't what they seem. It's not like super happy. It's actually really dark and abusive relationship. If you need trigger warnings, definitely look up trigger warnings for this one, because it felt very much set in reality and grounded, and like you knew these characters, and it almost felt like I was watching a documentary. It felt really weird listening to it. I was like, oh my gosh, is this real? Maybe because it's set in the 70s and I pictured everything through the 78 film lens. And yeah, everything felt very real and grounded in this, and just kind of like when people are pushed, you know, a certain way, there's repercussions. Let's just say that. I don't want to give too much away. I really enjoyed this. I wouldn't have picked it up if it wasn't for this book club, and I gave it 4 stars. Definitely something I don't usually read, but it was beautiful. I loved Paul. I will say I feel like it dragged a little bit in the middle, but that's it. It was great. I don't know why I'm squinting all of a sudden. I feel like it just got really bright outside. And then I ended up reading Old Country by Matt Curry and Harrison something, I forget the last name, but I read this for the MLM book club, which is hosted by Lexi, Michelle, and Monica, and this is a they should have called this rural country, honestly. I've been saying bored country because it was quite boring for me, but basically this couple, the guy has PTSD, he was in Afghanistan. They moved to like a cabin at the Tetons, at the foot of the Tetons. I believe they're near the Snake River too, which if you guys don't know, the Tetons is part of the Rocky Mountains, which goes like right in the middle of the USA. And I hear they're quite majestic. I have not seen them, but the way if you look up pictures of the Tetons in the river, it looks really cool. Anyways, so they moved to this cabin. Their neighbors are like, hey, here's some rules you have to follow for each season, because if you don't, there will be consequences. And that's pretty much all you can say about this book. It was really boring. I felt like it was just going on. And I did do the audio for it on Audible, and it felt like the narrators were screaming the whole time at me, and also like the F word is used over and over and over again, and I'm fine with a good F-bomb. You know me, I'm totally fine with that, but it felt like it was just like over and over and over and over again. It didn't have the same, I guess, intentions, or like, I don't know, the weight of that word. It didn't feel like it existed. It's just like how people talk, which I get, like, because let's be real, like, that's how people talk now. Like, we swear. So I was like, are they fighting again? Or are they just talking? Like, I don't know. I think that was just the audio for it. I just had a tough time differentiating that. But I gave it 2.5 stars. And the last book I ended up reading was The Haunted Forest Tour by James A. Moore and Jeff Strand. I read this on Kindle Unlimited, and this was my book like I was reading at night, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think Andrew from It Came From the Page read this book, and that's like what put it on my radar. This book was a lot of fun. At the beginning, I was like all for everything. I was like all for the freaking monsters and stuff. It was just like really crazy. This, if you can't tell from the cover of this is about like a haunted forest tour. There's these trams. They're like high tech too, because it's Jurassic Park, and stuff goes wrong though. The trams freeze. You're following a bunch of different characters. There's lots of gore. There's lots of creatures. It was a blast until the like middle of it. So beginning, middle of it, there's something introduced in it. There's like a whole reasoning behind this, why this is happening. And I'm like, I don't really need a reasoning. Like, if honestly they don't find out, like, I'm cool with that. If there's no like epic fight, I'm totally cool with, like, I was just cool with people honestly like being killed by giant bats. Like, I think that's funny. I think that's fun. So I was having a lot of fun with that. And there's also like other things in this. It was just creatures. It was like plants and stuff. So it was like a lot of fun. But yeah, I wish it kept it like a little ambiguous, or like no reasoning at all. Like, who cares? You know, you could have knocked off like a couple of pages in this. But I had a lot of fun with it. I think I'm leaning towards like a 3 or 3.5 for it. Definitely didn't blow me away or anything. It was just fun. Okay, so those are all the books I read in January, and let me know what your favorite book in January was, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!